These were the exact words Demet Özdemir used when she finally broke her silence. For years, she had mastered the art of staying composed in front of the cameras. She smiled when she had to, she gave polite answers when the press cornered her, and she never, not once, allowed herself to confess the truth about what had happened in the privacy of her heart. But now, sitting in front of an audience that was eager to hear her story, she let those words slip. And with them, the mask she had been wearing for so long began to crack. She described the moment in painstaking detail, as if every second of that night had been burned into her memory. The room was crowded, filled with people laughing, exchanging glances, whispering secrets. The air smelled of expensive perfume and nervous excitement. But none of that mattered. None of it even registered. Because at the exact moment the door opened, her entire world shifted. Can Yaman walked in. The man she had once shared everything with. The man whose eyes had once read her like an open book. The man who had been both her greatest joy and her deepest heartbreak. For years, she had convinced herself that she was over him. That time had done its work, that her wounds had healed. But in that instant, when his figure appeared in the doorway, her chest tightened so much that she could hardly draw breath. "I felt like my body betrayed me," she confessed. "My heart was racing, my hands were trembling, and I couldn't control it. I thought I had buried all of it, all the love, all the pain, all the memories. But when I saw him, it all came back at once. And I realized I wasn't as strong as I thought." She remembered locking eyes with him. Just for a second. But in that second, time itself seemed to collapse. It wasn't just about the man who stood there now, older, more distant, more guarded. It was about the memories he carried with him, the echoes of laughter they once shared, the tears that had fallen behind closed doors, and the silences that had grown heavier than any words. That glance was enough to take her back to the beginning. Back to the days when everything felt possible. Back to the nights when they whispered promises neither of them could keep. Back to the final moment when everything crumbled, and she walked away without looking back. Or at least, she thought she had walked away. And that is why she couldn't breathe. Because in that room, surrounded by strangers, she wasn't facing just a man. She was facing her past, her choices, her regrets. She was facing the one person who could still, after all this time, make her feel like she was standing on the edge of a cliff with no ground beneath her feet. For years, fans around the world speculated about what really happened between Demet Özdemir and Can Yaman. They watched them on screen, felt the undeniable chemistry, and wondered if that spark was more than just acting. Yet, no matter how many interviews she gave, Demet always kept certain memories locked away, especially the ones that hurt the most. But when she finally confessed, "I couldn't breathe when he walked into the room," everything changed. This wasn't just about a reunion. It was about a wound that had never truly healed. She described the moment in detail. It was as if the air disappeared. "My chest tightened. My heart started racing so fast that I thought everyone could hear it. And yet, I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. I just froze." For a woman who has always been so strong, so radiant, and so composed in front of the cameras, admitting such vulnerability was shocking. But that moment revealed something bigger, that the story between her and Can was far from over in her heart. She confessed that what shocked her most wasn't just the sudden wave of emotions. It was the realization that no matter how far she tried to run from the past, it was still inside her. "I thought I had built a new life," she said softly. "New projects, new friendships, new love stories even." But when he walked into that room, it was like nothing had changed. "I was still that same girl who used to wait for his call at 3 a.m., still the girl who believed every word he whispered, still the girl who cried when he didn't show up." The confession was raw, and for the first time, she allowed the world to see just how vulnerable she truly was. She went on to describe the exact feeling of being trapped between two worlds, the one she lived now, and the one that ended years ago but never really left her heart. Her voice broke as she recalled the early days, the times when their connection seemed unbreakable. "We laughed so much back then," she said. "Even the smallest moments felt magical. A coffee, a walk, a late-night conversation, everything had meaning. He had this way of making me feel seen, like nobody else in the world mattered. But along with the laughter came the pain. The misunderstandings, the fights, the silences that stretched too long. And then, the night that ended it all. Demet never gave details before, but this time, she opened a door she had kept locked. That last night, she whispered, it was the first time I realized love isn't always enough. Sometimes you can love someone with every part of you, and still, lose them. Demet remembered it clearly, the moment their eyes met again. It wasn't planned, it wasn't staged, it wasn't something she could have prepared for. 1 second she was lost in her own world, trying to look composed, and the next, his gaze caught hers like a trap she couldn't escape. She confessed that it felt like electricity shooting through her body, the kind that leaves you trembling long after the moment has passed. His eyes, she whispered, were exactly the same. The same intensity, the same depth, the same silence. And that silence said more than any words ever could. For years, she had wondered if she would ever see him again. She had asked herself over and over what she would do if that day came. Would she smile politely? Would she ignore him? Would she break down? But when the moment arrived, none of those answers made sense. Because the truth was, her body reacted before her mind could. She couldn't breathe, couldn't speak, couldn't even move. And in that frozen second, she felt everything at once, the joy of their happiest days, the sting of their worst arguments, the loneliness of nights spent waiting for him, and the sharp pain of knowing she had lost him. But what made it unbearable was the uncertainty. What did he feel in that moment? Demet admitted that she searched his face for clues. Did his eyes soften when they landed on hers? Did his expression flicker with recognition, with emotion, with even the smallest trace of what they once had? Or was it all in her head? She remembered every detail. The way his hand tightened slightly at his side, as if controlling something he wanted to say but couldn't. The way he hesitated for half a breath before taking another step into the room. And most of all, the way his eyes lingered on her just a moment too long. It was like he wanted to say something, she said. Like he wanted to reach out. But he didn't. And that silence was louder than anything else. In that moment, the world outside didn't exist. The cameras, the people, the laughter, all of it blurred into nothingness. It was just Demet and Can, staring at each other across a crowded room, trapped in a history neither of them could escape. To understand why Demet felt like she couldn't breathe, you have to go back to where it all began. Because their story wasn't just written in front of cameras. It was lived between glances, between silences, between the lines of a script that blurred too easily with reality. When Demet first met Can Yaman, she admitted she didn't expect anything extraordinary. He was charming, yes. Confident, yes. But she had met countless actors before, shared sets with professionals who knew how to play their part. Yet there was something about Can that felt different from the start. His energy filled every room he entered, his laugh carried further than anyone else's, and his eyes always seemed to look past the surface, as if they wanted to read your soul. In those early days, Demet felt something she couldn't name. During rehearsals, when their lines required them to hold each other's gaze, she noticed it was harder than it should have been to look away. When they improvised scenes, she realized she wasn't acting anymore, she was reacting to him, to his presence, to the way his voice softened when he said her name. Fans around the world noticed it too. They flooded social media with clips, GIFs, and comments, convinced that what they were seeing couldn't be just fiction. The chemistry was too strong, too effortless. And deep down, Demet knew they were right. What existed between her and Can wasn't something anyone could fake. But with that fire came danger. Because the stronger the connection grew, the harder it became to control. Every scene blurred the lines between character and reality. Every word spoken for the script carried double meanings. And every private glance when the cameras cut became more loaded than the ones meant for the show. Demet admitted she tried to resist it. She told herself, this is work. Don't lose yourself. But how do you resist something that feels like gravity? How do you fight a pull that drags you closer no matter how hard you push away? And that was how it began, quietly, slowly, beautifully. A friendship that turned into something deeper. A trust that turned into intimacy. A connection that turned into love, even if neither of them dared to name it out loud at first. So when Can walked into that room years later, Demet wasn't just seeing a man. She was seeing the ghost of all those moments, the laughter in the dark corners of a set, the whispers no one else could hear, the promises made in silence. And that's why her breath caught in her chest. Because she wasn't just remembering the love they shared, she was remembering how it felt to lose it. Demet once said, "Love isn't always destroyed by a lack of feelings. Sometimes, it's destroyed by too many of them." That was the truth of her story with Can Yaman. Their bond was passionate, undeniable, but also fragile, too intense for the world they lived in. The cameras didn't just capture their love, they magnified it. Every smile, every touch, every glance became the subject of speculation. The pressure was suffocating, the rumors endless. And slowly, the weight of the outside world began to seep into the private world they tried to protect. Arguments started. Misunderstandings grew. Nights that once ended in laughter turned into nights of silence. Demet admitted that sometimes she waited by the phone for hours, hoping for a call that never came. Other times, Can would appear at her door, full of apologies and promises that tomorrow would be better. And for a while, she believed him. For a while, she believed that love was enough to conquer everything. But the cracks widened. The silences grew heavier. And then came that final night, the one she never spoke about until recently. The night when both of them realized, without saying it out loud, that their story was ending. Demet remembered closing the door behind her, her hands shaking, her heart breaking, her breath caught in her chest. She didn't look back. She couldn't. Because if she had, she would have stayed. Years passed. New projects, new faces, new cities. On the surface, Demet moved on. But deep down, the wound never fully healed. And that's why, when Can walked into that room after all those years, it wasn't just an old flame reappearing. It was every unresolved word, every broken promise, every unanswered call crashing back into her life at once. She felt her knees weaken, her chest tighten, her breath disappear. And in that single instant, she understood something painful yet undeniable: part of her had never stopped loving him. As Demet told her story, her eyes filled with tears. She didn't hide them. She didn't pretend to be strong. For the first time, she allowed herself to be honest, with the world, with her fans, and perhaps most importantly, with herself. "I couldn't breathe when he walked into the room," she repeated. "Because he wasn't just a man from my past. He was my past. My happiness, my pain, my regret, and maybe even the love I will always carry with me." The audience was silent, hanging on her every word. Because what she revealed wasn't just about her and Can. It was about the kind of love we all fear and crave at the same time, the love that changes us forever, the love we never truly let go of. And while Demet never said whether that moment meant a new beginning or just a painful reminder, one thing became clear. For her, seeing him again was like standing at the edge of everything they had been, everything they could have been, and everything they had lost. A love too strong to forget. A goodbye too painful to accept. And a single glance across a crowded room that proved some stories never truly end.